I'm in.
Prediction, right?
Oh, what is
You have
it?
to pick a time.
Yeah.
Silent, you have to put it on your paper. It's only good.
Okay. Put on what? Just anywhere?
Anything, we're going to hold your account.
Okay. Okay, I got mine locked.
Reveal later.
So, what are you going to close this?
Oh, you win. You win. It's Chris.
My mic on. At this time, I'd like to reconvene the regular board meeting. We'll now hold the swearing-in ceremony for our 2021-22 Student Board Representative, Gabriella Stubblefield. Yay! So, yeah. You join me? I, Gabrielle Stubblefield, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations. Clerk of the board, please call roll.
Arancibia,
Present.
Hall,
Present.
Segura,
Here.
Solis,
Present.
Tarantino,
Here.
Aguirre,
Here.
Stubblefield.
Thank you. We'll now hold a moment of silence and pledge allegiance of the flag. Hand over your heart, please. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board met in closed session preceding this meeting to discuss the following issues: public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reclassification, reassignment, resignation, transfer, Government Code Section 54957. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Codes 5495.9, 54956.9. 3, conference with labor negotiator, Government Code Section 54957.6. And 4, public employee performance evaluation, Government Code Section 54957. The board took the following action. Moved by Dr. Arancibia, seconded by Vice President Solis, to approve a settlement agreement with one certificated employee with a vote of Arancibia, yes, Hall, yes, Segura, yes, Solis, yes, Tarantino, yes. Move to number 6. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the July 26-21 regular board meeting, with the change that the board first will consider board agenda item R1 after the consent vote. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield, Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall. Maybe we lost Mrs. Hall. Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Okay. the recognition of Eastlake High School will be held, I believe that was the baseball team, right?
Yes.
Will be held at a later date as the team wasn't able to attend tonight. The board is very pleased to recognize the Bonita Vista High School boys basketball team for winning the CIF Socal Regional Championship for Division 3A. The team had a 17-7 record this season and won the championship game 77-71. We are very proud of their outstanding season, and we are honored to recognize Coach Don Dumas and the Bonita Varsity Boys basketball team. All right, Coach, did you want to say a few words, sir? Sure.
It was obviously a fantastic season, one for the history books, but it really was a total effort when you think about all that went involved with having an athletic season in the manner in which we did with the protocols and the COVID testing and all those other things that you might consider obstacles, but what we look at it as we're just very thankful that our school administrators, our principals, our ASB director, athletic director, everybody was on board with the support that we needed to have a successful season. Our main concern was just staying healthy, and we were able to do that. And these boys played their hearts out in very difficult circumstances, like so many other teams did. And I'm just extremely proud to stand here and represent them and their fine accomplishment. Obviously, it's something that we'll always remember. And we like to think that we represented the Sweetwater District well, not only in the way we played basketball, but in the way we carried ourselves on and off the court, and we take great pride in that. So we thank you all for this recognition tonight, and we look forward to winning another one.
Coach, here's your certificates you can hand off to your team. Thank you.
Thank you so
I didn't know
much.
this was one of your skills. You have many skills, sir. That's really good.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, thank you.
Great work, gentlemen. Great work.
All right. Next recognition. The board is very honored to recognize the boys basketball team from San Isidro High School for winning the Division 4 AA Regional State Championship. The team finished 23-7 in the season, and Coach Terrence Tucker earned his 300th career win. Woo! Coach Tucker was also named Regional State Division 4 Coach of the Year, and player Martin Flores was named third team All-State. We are very proud of the entire team for this amazing season. Please help me congratulate the San Isidro Boys High School basketball.
All right!
And Coach, if you'd like to say some words, or anybody who's.
Let me first start off by thanking the community of San Isidro, the board members here, the staff at Sweetwater High School, Sweetwater Union School District, our wonderful principal, Ms. Lopez, and her admin team. I tell all the young coaches that get into the business of coaching basketball, I tell them the one thing that you need to be successful more than any other thing is people in the chain of command that support and respect you. And I've been very blessed at San Isidro to have 3 outstanding principals during my time. Actually, 2 of them are in here right now. So that's the key, because everybody loves you when you lose, and everybody hates you when you win, especially in today's climate of intolerance and other things that go on. I think we've seen some of them here lately. And especially a community like San Isidro where we're basically all minorities. So the one thing that I think myself and my coaches do a good job of, I don't consider myself a great coach. I do think I'm someone who explains to them to be accountable for your actions, chase your goals and your dreams, And if it's a real dream and it's a real goal, chase it with your heart and soul. And don't let people with negative attitudes, racism, sexism, don't let them stand in your way. Actually make sure when they stand up, you stand up. Stand up for your family, stand up for your community, stand up for your school. So thank you very much for letting us be here.
Thank you, Coach. Did you have another speaker? Did you want to say you're good? Okay, all right. Congratulations, team. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you give the certificates?
Oh, yes, Coach. Alex.
Coach Tucker.
Alex, can you get the coach? Because we got to get the certificate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We'll now provide an opportunity for SDCOE representative Dr. Marks Gavarna to make any comments if he would like to, sir.
No comment tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for being on the call. We'll now have an update from our superintendent, Dr. Aguirre.
Thank you. Thank you, President Segura. Good evening and buenas tardes. Welcome to our July 26th board meeting. Our school district, along with the Chula Vista Elementary School District, is one of the first school districts to open in San Diego County for the 2021-22 school year in an in-person manner. It has been quite a process welcoming all of our students and staff in person. Given the current context when everyone is back, it is critically important to remind all of our students who are over the age of 12 to vaccinate themselves against COVID-19. We strongly encourage it. It is also critically important to continue to wear masks while indoors. It is a matter of caring for each other and caring for members of our familias and our communities. As I walked our campuses in this last week, I wanted to relay the most common sentiment that I heard was one of excitement and one of anticipation. After 16 long months of distance learning, most of our students and staff were ready to come back in person. If we are to do this safely, we must continue to ask our families to do self-checks at home in the mornings. And if there are any symptoms that are present, to stay home. Please ensure we are all staying safe and we're all staying healthy. We also continue to work to coordinate our COVID-19 testing at multiple school sites, as well to continue to coordinate vaccination opportunities, whether these are located at schools or with our partners, such as community clinics. Overall, the opening on Wednesday went fairly smooth as could be expected in the middle of a pandemic. Our schools ensured a warm welcome to our students, and I saw many happy, smiling families on our schools. This is my report for today, and with that, muchas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Aguirre. We'll now have a report from our student board representative, Ms. Stubblefield.
So basically we just started school the 21st, of course, and me and the alternate Natalia haven't gotten to meet with all the presidents yet. We were planning on meeting them later this week to get all of their emails and just introduce ourselves and tell them what our plan is. So that's what we have so far. I'm really excited to be working with all of you, and that's it. So thank you.
Thank you. This is the point on the agenda where members of the public may address the board on any matter not on the agenda and have 3 minutes each to do so. The Board of Trustees cannot legally take action on or respond to matters not posted on the public agenda, but will refer the matter to the superintendent's office for review and report. Speakers will refrain from using profanity and speak in a respectful manner. Thank you for your cooperation.
Joseph Viverios.
Good evening, Superintendent Aguirre, President Segura, board members, virtual and present, executive board, and guests. Joe Viverios here again, 2 months in a row. I was going to watch online, but since an issue came up, I need to bring this up in person. My oldest daughter used to take a bus to her school. Well, one day I took off from work on leave so I could get my wife some money for the bus for her year. Needless to say, my wife showed up to pay for the bus fare, and I'm finding out, with no notification, her route got canceled. I called the superintendent's office, spoke to the assistant, which just may be directed there, and finding out that, oh, we'll get back with me. Well, school started, and no one's got back with me. It was the south one here by Aquatica. There used to be a stop for many kids going to Olympian. My oldest one goes to Olympian. And I'd just like to know why I'd be told how to get returned a phone call and yet not happen to me. I'm not going to rant and rave, say because us minorities are there and that's what's happening, because I'm not going to be like other people in the district that I've heard been here stating this, but I'd just like to know why parents haven't been notified. Those 12 to 13 students, I don't think they're all seniors and there's nobody there for now, so I would just like to know why we should have been notified and not just totally ignored until people coming in to pay their $400 and finding out that, oh, you don't have that route no more. That changes all the schedule. Now you got to make sure you have, oh, we got to make sure we're here at this time here. One daughter's going to this school, one daughter's going to that school. Other ones may have 2 or 3 students going to different schools, but if the bus isn't there, what are they going to do now? So I just feel like you should let members know when you're counseling around. I was going to go lay into the transportation department, but I find out they're not the ones making the budget. Whoever makes the budget, they probably calculated that, saying, well, we're not going to run this route. Why didn't it come down the pipeline? Parents should know on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Diana Godfrey.
Hi, everybody. I'm here to represent PTA. Or actually, in the middle schools and the high schools, we're really PTSA because we value our students, and I'm so excited that we have a student board member a part of this, and we value that as well. We encourage students to become executive board members on our PTAs in the middle schools and the high schools. So I just wanted to put a face to PTA. I wanted to remind everybody that the council, we have been helping the students and the families and the staff in Sweetwater Union High School District for the past 65 years. And PTA, you probably know, but we are the largest children's advocacy organization. And we do fill a gap that other organizations on the campus cannot. We try to host suicide prevention talks, and we partnered with Brain XP, which is a teen who created this thing to work with other teens and talk with other teens. They're more comfortable talking with peers. We are trying our best to prevent more child trafficking. We work with CHP for driver safety programs and so much more. But now we're also here to say that we want to partner with you all to help rebuild trust. I know there are some committees that you would need PTA influence, parent input, for example, LCFF and LCAP and all that, and so much more. So just please remember PTA. I wanted to thank Dr. Aguirre for offering to put my little PTA flyer. We would like to have more schools form PTAs, PTSAs in their schools. So I just wanted to plant that little seed that PTA is important and valuable in every school in our district. I wanted to just say that I'm the president of the council. I'm also on the 9th District PTA up at the San Diego County Office of Ed. I'm the vice president director of health for the next 2 years. So I can also take any suggestions and input up to the next level of PTA as well. So I want to thank you for letting us use the Parent Center. We're getting ready to reserve that and to make sure we meet all the COVID guidelines to use the facility. Thank you for that. And please, if you need to contact PTSA, we will get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tiffany Hill.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Hill. I am a resident of San Diego since birth, but I have been in the Chula Vista area for about 21 years. I have two sons who have attended the Sweetwater Union District. One is in Eastlake High right now. I came tonight, I felt as a healthcare provider that I felt compelled to share some information with the crowd. I know that this may not change anything right now, but I felt like it was important information to share. So respectfully, I'm hoping that I can get some information across. So my goal with this is just to provide scientific information. As a pharmacist for 24 years in this community in a hospital, our livelihood is based on evidence-based medicine. We look at studies that are published, randomized controlled studies, etc. So I've done quite a bit of research on this topic, and I wanted to share a few tidbits with you. So my first demonstration, I put a dot on this poster board just to kind of give a representation. So this is a 1/4 inch round diameter dot. So right now we know that the diameter of the COVID virus is around the size of 60 to 140 nanometers large. The masks that we wear, both the cloth and the surgical masks, are measured in micrometers, which is 1,000 times larger. So this dot represents a very small virus. If you were to proportionately look at it in that way, the range that you're looking at is 200 to 1,000 times difference in size. Just with 200 times difference in size, you're looking at 4-foot diameter. If you go up to 1,000, it's 21 feet diameter. In response or in comparison to this dot. I think it's also very important to also look at the negative health consequences that come with wearing masks for long term. We have multiple studies on this, as well as multiple studies that show that there's no statistical difference between people that contract COVID, whether they have masks or not. Some of the physiological effects, so physical, you have hypoxia, you have hypercapnia, which is too much carbon dioxide, shortness of breath, increased lactate concentration, decline in pH levels, acidosis, toxicity, inflammation. There's also many psychological effects as well. I'm not going to go through those, but it leads to a lot of different maladies such as depression, headaches, etc. So I think my main point here, even though we have direction from the CDC, I want to make sure that we are looking at it logically, using our critical thinking skills, and making sure that we're making decisions based on science, not just with the CDC mandates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Anderson. Sarah Anderson. Cynthia Vickers. Jacob. Oh, Cynthia's coming? Okay, thank you.
Right up here to the mic, please. Right there.
To the mic, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a mother and grandmother. I'm concerned about wearing the mask all day in school for the kids. I'm very, very concerned. I agree with the lady that just spoke before. It is so true. I'm not just from her, I'm reading this everywhere, that it's not healthy wearing this. You can't breathe. You're shortness of breath. You're not thinking right. I'm very concerned. And I'm also against if they're trying to get vaccination for the schools, I'm against that. I think if you have it's your choice. I think if you want to, then yes. If not, no. My grandson's in school. He comes home and he's he's wheezing and he can't breathe and he just sleeps and he's the shortness of breath, and I'm very concerned about this. Wearing a mask all day in school, I really believe it's going to affect our kids. That's all I need to tell you. I'm just very concerned about our children in school with these masks or vaccine. I think it should be a choice. I really, really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Anderson?
I was over in the overflow room. My name is Sarah Anderson. I am a parent here in the Chula Vista Elementary School, and I'm also an educator. I'm a foster parent, work with children who have had multiple issues with multiple backgrounds, that I have a child with autism. And I'm here today to talk about the mask mandates. I believe that the mask should be an option, as our previous speaker had said, who was a nurse, and the previous grandmother, I'm assuming, I think, wasn't here to hear her. I spoke before Nathan Fletcher on this. I work in preschool, and within the preschool, children learn through facial expressions. I have a child that is assigned to me, and he can't tell what I'm thinking. He can't tell what I'm saying, really. He can't read my eyes, and he can't read my lips. The masks are, I understand what the mandate was in the beginning. Because our population was overly exposed, our schools were all closed down because there was a fear of an overthrow in the medical system. The medical system is safe. It's okay. Their numbers are down. People have gotten vaccines. People already have had COVID. So we have things in place now that it's under control. I have a daughter. She's 14 years old. She's just going into 10th grade. This is the first time she's walking onto her campus. She has said to me, "I'm sorry, Mommy, but I don't know if I can wear a mask all day." My child has disabilities. My child can't talk to people when they have a mask on, and she has a mask on because she feels like there's something there that she can't get past. I've had to have a meeting with the assistant vice principal, her teachers, her educators, her RSP teacher, to please don't hold this against her. Don't let her go into the classrooms and have the teachers hold it against her, because she can't. She physically and emotionally can't talk to other people. I know that the grades are based on children that interact with teachers. They're based on interacting with their students. There's fear. Masks produce that fear. Masks encourage that fear. These children are children. They're learning. They're learning to talk to each other, learning to communicate with each other, learning to understand each other, learning social norms. They're looking at eyes. They're looking at mouths. They're trying to figure out, if I approach this group of people, will I be let in? There are people, children, that are of all ages who can't understand what's going on because they can't read faces. As adults, that's different. We've learned to adjust because we're adults. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Mark Levisier?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark Levisier, resident here in Chula Vista. I came today on behalf of my daughters. They are 6th and 4th graders in elementary school to share their concerns with you guys. I understand, did some research before I came over here too. I know the mask mandate is coming down from California, from the health department, and you guys are following those orders. I know this is not specific to this district, so I know this is not necessarily you guys singling out, our children. But our children are being impacted, at least mine particularly, because of these masks they have to wear all day. They're not used to it. My youngest daughter already going through a pretty tough year. The virtual learning was very challenging for everybody involved, parents, teachers, most importantly the children. I know it was not easy on you guys as well. I think trying to get back to normal is probably the best thing we can do. But when they come home complaining of headaches, complaining of not being able to take enough mask breaks, complaining about the looks that other children give them, the previous person mentioned the same thing. Some kids are much more enthusiastic about masks than others. So it's kind of creating some kind of segregation amongst kids who are formerly their friends. I know this is coming out of a good place, and the idea is to protect our children, but at what point is it doing more harm than good? I think what we've seen from the county's website regarding the COVID data, the children under the age of 12 are not being impacted the way the adults are. The adults have the option right now to get the emergency authorized vaccines to protect themselves. And for our children, we're not there, and where you stand on that is irrelevant. But the fact that masks have proven, at least in past studies, as our pharmacist mentioned as well, especially cloth masks, are not effective at preventing the transmission of respiratory diseases. So I think what we need to do is really take a look at what is more effective in terms of keeping our children safe. Is the cure worse than the treatment? Or I forget how that goes. But the idea is we don't want to subject them to more harm than good, and the idea to keep them safe from this virus. Which, quite honestly, in my family, we've all had it, and we've all recovered, so we have natural immunity as well. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, but I think what we need right now is you guys to be leaders. Even though this is coming from the California government, we would really like our district to be a leader in showing that we have the support of the family and the children's best health in mind. And even if that goes against what the California Health Association is saying, I think that's what we're looking for right now. Just want you guys to understand the stress it's causing on the children, mine specifically, and hopefully we can come to an agreement here in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jacob?
Hello, how are you doing? I won't reiterate what everybody said because I think we all understand the facts of the matter, but I do have a couple questions. Does this district have a say to the state of what they want? Are you guys able to vote and maybe persuade the California government to do what the parents want in the schools? I don't know which one you want to answer that, but is that something you guys take a vote on?
So we can't answer any questions that are on items that are not agendized, so we could just listen, and then the superintendent's taking notes of this.
Okay. So if you guys can vote on it, I just wanted to say that, I do know that from the people that we have spoken to, all the parents that have gotten together, I think it is a majority vote that parents are all in line with the kids not wearing the mask. And if it is a big majority like that, can we have an open forum where the parents can come in, voice their opinions, to maybe have you guys hear that, or take a vote? I don't know how you guys would do it for the parents in the schools, but if you do find out that we are the majority of what we want, would you guys be able to address that to the state, so maybe that we can persuade the state to go in favor of what we like? The last number that I had heard was that I think it was 300 children in America under 18 had died of COVID, and 600,000 were adults. So I mean, the numbers don't add up to where the kids are that vulnerable to the disease. And even if they were, it was, they're just getting it as more of a common cold. My daughter was infected, so was I. We quarantined for 12 days. I was a little bit more sick than she was, so I saw the effects of it firsthand. I do know, I'm not denying that it isn't affecting elderly people and overweight and different underlying conditions. My mom spent 3 days in the hospital. We've had some people that were affected and they passed away. So I do know that it's a serious illness. I'm not in here saying that it's not, but I do know that the effect on children is not as severe as everyone is stating. And I mean, like the ones back there said, my daughter's in 6th grade. She comes home with headaches. It's hard to breathe. There's irritations on the face. Behind the ears are going raw. Unless they're wearing it all day and everyone's vaccinated, I mean, you're cross-contaminating at so many different points that it doesn't even make sense to have it when you're in the classroom, but not going out and they're mingling with the same amount of people. You're in the grocery stores with people that aren't. So, I mean, it just doesn't seem like it makes sense. And I'm hoping that when it does come to a vote, that you guys would be able to voice the opinions of the parents to the state government, and that maybe we can, get what we need. And thank you for your time. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Nick Marinovich.
I have 3 issues of concerns tonight about the school district, which has now taken the glide path back, by all indications, to the old Sweetwater way. It is a sad and especially frustrating to us volunteers who spend so much time trying to make things better. Your agenda item tonight on the appointment of the taxpayer rep for the oversight committee is a pathetic example of how things really have not changed. My first issue, however, is a positive one. Overall, the leadership under Johnny Socal in terms of good governance as far as accounting, keeping track of things, albeit as a response to outsiders picking at the Securities and Exchange Commission, no matter what, it's a job well done by her and her staff. The second issue I have is fiscal stewardship. You're granting raises, not eliminating positions, and just not questioning enough where you're going, and will you be able to afford all that you have put back onto the plate now that you've got this federal money coming in this reprieve on the enrollment issue with revenue? My concern still remains you have too many people in too high a salary given the amount of revenue that will be coming in the future. And the day will brew in the future where you're going to have to come to grips. Not now, but in the future. The final issue is the quid pro quo, yes, that appears to be rearing its ugly head again. It's not consultants with lobster dinners for the superintendent. It's understandings and relationships. And lo and behold, you can observe it. You know what I'm talking about. And the people who follow local political matters, like myself and others in this community, know what's going on. It's the Sweetwater way again, and it's shameful. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Jesse Hale.
Yes. Good afternoon. I spoke several months ago on 2 subjects. One was reducing class sizes. The other was the effect of the layoff proposed by former Superintendent Janney and fully supported and voted for by board members Arturo Solis in District 1, Frank Tarantino in District 3, to make up for the budget deficit caused by Superintendent Janney's leadership, former. First, this is where we stand on class sizes. We are now in the 2nd week of instruction, and at my site, there were 2 classes of 50-plus students with 1 class that has 55. The CDC recommends that students remain 3 feet apart in classrooms if possible. At 50-plus students, that is not possible. While many classes are overflowing, many of the teachers who were victims of the layoff are still on temporary contracts or are not hired. There are multiple classes that do not yet have a certified teacher. Board members Tarantino and Solis, I would respectfully ask you to take the lead on any solution. Since I and many others warned you of the consequences we now see and literally begged you to vote no. You are responsible for the layoffs. Teachers who lost their health insurance to the layoffs you voted for became sick with COVID-19. Teachers lost their supportive familiar faces when they needed them the most. Veteran teachers are being asked to teach classes they have not taught for years because there is no one else to teach them. Our principals are asked and are doing the impossible by filling multiple classes with teachers they do not have. Do you feel your actions are wrong? What will you do to repair them? I would love to work with you and everyone on solutions, but you have yet to acknowledge the problem or take responsibility for your actions. Please help us with a solution that was a preventable and foreseeable problem. Here's what we can do, all of us immediately. All of our board members. Offer permanent contracts to each certified teacher. This will lower class sizes immediately. It will also provide stability to both laid off teachers, the sites where they're employed, and the students they teach. It will begin to rebuild culture and community that makes each school unique and long-term. I am asking and will ask Dr. Aguirre, the Sweetwater Board, our teachers union, and our community, and myself. Let's find a long-term solution together and lower class sizes to 25 to 28 students within 5 years. Let's put students first again. Thank you.
Kathleen Cheers.
Good evening. I would like to acknowledge the statement released by Dr. Aguirre and our Board of Trustees in speaking out against the racism and bully-like actions of some during the Coronado High CIF boys basketball game. The foundation on which high school athletics is built is clearly adverse to the actions of those who participated in the demeaning act. Renowned Sweetwater basketball coaches Lori Morris, Alex Estrada, Don Dumas serve as a stark contrast to the actions witnessed at the Coronado game. I would like to thank and acknowledge teachers, counselors, nurses, administrators, secretarial staff, gardeners, custodians, all district employees who are back at school providing our community's children with not only an education, but the experience of middle and high school. Unfortunately, our community, myself included, often takes for granted all you do. This year is laying in your lap, an unprecedented situation, but I have no doubt you will, as always, do the job you always do. I'm often asked how it came to be that a few community members and others were able to expose the truth about Sweetwater Union High School District special interests in corruption. My answer, several years ago, when we initially met with the FBI and DA, we were advised a case is built based upon evidence and actions. One cannot simply raise a concern or concerns, they must provide proof certain. Part of that proof certain is laying out one's case piece by piece, action by action. That was taken by the offending party. It's like a building of bricks, laid brick by brick. A single brick does nothing, but many bricks build the case. And once those bricks come tumbling down, it takes all involved down with them. We spoke, we were concerned. The board then chose to disregard. Imagine what it must have felt like. Knock on the door, search warrant, trustees, superintendent, and others, their lives imploded. And those who were giving the trustees all that bad advice walked away scot-free. After all, they didn't vote for anything, nor did they have the title of superintendent. Thank you.
There are no further speakers.
Thank you.
You have for L4, sir.
Clerk of the Board, would you please read the items being pulled from the consent agenda?
Yes, I have two corrections to read. There's a correction to the report on board agenda item L1. There were 116 teachers incorrectly listed under substitutes as separations/temporary. They should have been listed under separations, resignations, retirements, contracted. The report has been updated on Novus, and the teachers that were revised have been highlighted. In addition, on board agenda item L5, the fiscal impact needs to be corrected to read pursuant to guidance from the San Diego County Office of Education. An AB 1200 disclosure is not required for this board item. That item will also be updated on Novus. The following items have been pulled. F3 by staff, F6 by Mr. Tarantino and the public, F7 by the public, F9 by Mr. Segura, Mr. Tarantino and the public, G3 by Mr. Segura, G15 by Dr. Arancibia and Mrs. Hall, H4 by Dr. Arancibia and Mr. Segura, K5 by Mrs. Hall, K6 by staff and the public, L4 by the public, L6 by Mrs. Hall, L8 by Mrs. Hall, M1 by Dr. Arancibia, P1 by Mr. Tarantino, Q1 by Mr. Tarantino, and R1 by Mr. Tarantino and staff.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield,
Yes.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We'll move to F3, report on board request for information and policy directions to staff.
Actually, we wanted to do R1 first, sir.
Okay, let's do the one first.
Thank you.
R1, right?
Yes.
So good evening, President Segura, Board Trustees, Superintendent Aguirre, Cabinet, and Community. So this evening we'll be presenting the 21-22 special tax rates for our community facilities districts, known as our CFDs, which we have about 21 in our district. And this is an annual administrative cycle, which brings us forward at this point in the year to the resolution that we take forward per the deadlines with the County of San Diego of August 10th, where the County of San Diego assesses the levy for the annual basis. This information, this notice, was published in the Star News in May of 28th, as well as June 25th, in addition to the district's website. And so this evening we have Ms. Barbara Hale Carter with the Special District Financing Administration. She's our consultant that helps us prepare the analysis and the methodology associated with the tax rates. So she'll go through the presentation here shortly with the board.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent, staff. As introduced, my name is Barbara Hale Carter. For the first couple of slides, I'm going to go a little bit slow to help everyone remember where we were and where we're headed. But please do stop me if you have any questions in the interim. After completing a 31-year review of all the revenue and expenditures since the formation of CFD number 1, the implementation and adoption of a cost allocation plan by the board, which directs how projects are determined to be funded through the CFDs and how such expenditures are allocated among the CFDs, both of which were reviewed by legal counsel and outside management. The calculation of the status of each CFD is presented to the board annually. This first began in 2015. The results of such annual analysis provides the recommendation for setting the special tax rates for the coming fiscal year. The analysis presented here tonight follows the same prescribed guidelines and directive. The first 3 slides are just overviews. This first slide is the administrative cycle, which is presented here and is provided to illustrate that staff works on the CFDs on a year-round basis. And as you can tell, we're in the top left-hand corner, establishing the tax rates June through August. This next slide takes us back to the time of formation of the CFDs. It's done to allow us to illustrate to you the difference between a tax rate that is subject to an annual adjustment and a tax rate that is not. If we use that middle line for an example, if you are forming a CFD today with the current costs today and the financing assumptions listed on the slide, if you allowed for a 2% adjustment annually, the initial tax rate would be set at $2,516 per dwelling unit, on average, for an average home. If there was not a 2% or an annual adjustment, the rate would need to start much higher at $3,156. The district has decided to move forward with CFDs. Every CFD we have in place has the directive in the rate and method to have that annual adjustment at 2%, allowed for new homeowners to be able to fund the home that they wanted to buy both in different types of funding mechanisms, first-time homeowner loans, VA loans to keep the price down. And as such, we have this 2% escalator. I want to point out, for an example, and I chose CFD number 1 as my example, that for a home of over 2,100 square feet, if it was permitted in the last fiscal year, would be subject to the maximum special tax for 21-22 of $1,654.08. That's about 58.5% of what you actually need to fund the impact from that same home. And I show that to you just as an example. It's an important part of the analysis to understand that none of these CFDs were formed to fund the full impact of middle and high school facilities. This last overview slide provides the status of the CFDs. This slide is presented to show the changes in taxable dwelling units from last fiscal year to the number projected for fiscal year 21-22. There's a column titled Term Ended that shows 802 dwelling units that as of this next coming year will no longer be taxed because they have paid for their full year or their full term of the special taxes. It also shows new dwelling units, 1,336, and 481 dwelling units that have prepaid their obligation. Prepayment is an option of any homeowner in any of the CFDs would they like to take that option. Now we'll get started looking through the methodology of how the tax rates are analyzed annually. This first slide is a great reference to look back as we walk through the remainder of the slides to show how the analysis is done. First, we evaluate the new construction obligation in seats. It's done by taking the dwelling units in each CFD times the student generation rate. It results in the number of students projected to be generated from each CFD, and it's compared to the seats that have been funded through the principal paid from the issuance of debt and any funds expended on what we call a pay-go basis. Next, we evaluate the capital projects that are needed to extend the useful life, also referred to as I walk through these slides as modernization. Again, we calculate the obligation now in dollars, and we compare that to the dollars spent on a pay-go basis for modernization. Finally, before determining their special tax requirement for the coming fiscal year, we take those unfunded obligations and we look at the balances that are held in each of the CFDs to determine and show that, yes, this levy is required. Let's get started. We start with a new construction obligation, and this year our example is CFD number 18. This slide shows that the 2,577 dwelling units to be built in CFD 18 are broken down in the 3 dwelling unit types displayed. Applying the student generation rates, we show a projected students in middle and high school for each of the dwelling unit types, and finally, adding those together, we show that CFD 18 shows a projection of 211 middle schoolers, which needs 211 middle school seats, and 410 high school students, which will need 410 high school seats. Separately, we determine by CFD the number of seats that have been funded. This year, my example is the San Ysidro High School. San Ysidro High School was paid through the issuance of debt and also through what we've been calling pay-go funding. Shown here is that about 85% of the seats have been funded to date. The school is in existence, but we still have debt outstanding, just like your home. You own your home, but you still haven't paid it all off. That's the concept I want to make sure we understand here. Finally, we look at all of the CFDs in total. For each CFD, we show the projected number of students at each level, the projected funded seats at each level, and the projected unfunded or actual unfunded seats at each of the levels. You can see across CFD 18, you can recognize the 211 middle schoolers and the 410 high schoolers. It's a little bit difficult to see on the line, but you can see the 14 middle school and 27 high school seats that have been funded to date, and the unfunded that remains. Those unfunded obligations here are also turned into dollars. This is a good point for us to stop just for a moment. I know that the district recently received a report that speaks to declining enrollment. I want to point out 2 points of clarity using this slide with that report in your hand. First is this slide does not take into consideration the facilities that have been constructed but not yet built. As shown in my example using San Ysidro High School, the CFDs have debt outstanding, the repayment of which will fund these schools. The unfunded seats shown do not represent new seats to be constructed. Those are just seats that have not been funded, and I have not provided an evaluation of those that have been built and unfunded, and I have not gone to that level in this analysis. Once that information is evaluated and future facility needs evaluated in the light of the information, staff will develop options for the superintendent's review and board consideration. Because those steps have not been taken, this adjustment has not been reflected in the analysis for this year, and as such, for today, we have followed the board's adopted parameters and direction from prior years throughout this analysis. We move on now to looking at the methodology of funding capital projects to extend the useful life. This slide shows us the math to determine the cost per student at both the middle and the high school level. We take the estimate of total cost, does not include an impact to any administrative services that are needed to support a school in total. They're reduced by non-recurring costs such as site purchase. We apply a state factor for modernization that's set at 50%. It provides us with an estimate of cost per school level, and finally an estimate of cost per student to extend the useful life. We're going to take that information and again use CFD 18 as our example. We can recognize the 211 middle schoolers and the 410 high schoolers. We multiply those by the cost per student to extend the useful life. We determine that obligation for this CFD is slightly in excess of $30 million. This slide goes on to show you the funded capital projects that have been allocated to this CFD of the $264,000 to date, and it provides you with a remaining obligation of about $29.9 million. Here's a summary of all of the CFDs. Again, shows the students by school type, and it shows the capital projects that extend the useful life, and I've provided an obligation per dwelling unit. Move on here to show those same figures, the capital projects that extend the useful life obligation, the funding that has been expended to date. And I need to mention that these slides and this analysis, when I say the words to date, I should be very clear. It not only takes into account any funds that have been expended, but it takes into account funds that are projected to be spent through 2021 and budgeted to be spent through 21-22. We move on to verifying the need for the special taxes by looking at what's actually in the fund balances of each of the CFDs. We start with a fund balance of 6/30/2020. We adjust that balance by the items shown, which will allow us to project the funding balance as of 6/30/21, using the same steps, using the projected budget, or the budget, excuse me, we determine a projected fund balance as of 6/30/22. So that just supports what I just mentioned. All of the items that are projected to be spent or budgeted have been included in the analysis. But now we need to look at the $183 million that sits. And to do that, we need to determine the unfunded obligation in both new seats and extending the useful life obligation. It shows that our obligations are incredibly higher than their fund balances. But I know at the district, our first priority is new construction. We need to make sure that we always have a seat available for that student. So instead of just evaluating the total obligation against the funds that we have on hand, we break it down and just look at the obligation for new construction and the projected fund balance. This slide shows you that none of the CFDs have met their new construction obligation. It's nice for a moment to look back at a snapshot. This CFD shows the development statistics of each of the CFDs. It provides the remaining term of the special taxes, and it reiterates my words from the earlier slides. Only CFD number 2 has funded its new construction obligation. In fact, the term of the tax has already been extinguished for CFD number 2, and we no longer levy that CFD, but we keep it here just for an overview. And if I could take a moment and look at the development statistics and the remaining term of the special taxes, I want to note that these numbers and these, especially the remaining term of the special taxes, it's for the CFD in total. Every property has their own term. If property A has a building permit in 1990 and the term of their tax is 25 years, it runs for 25 years and ends. CFD number 1 is an excellent example. The majority of the CFD is developed. Homes are dropping off. They no longer have an obligation to pay special taxes. But yet, under the remaining term of the special taxes, I have to write unknown because I don't know the last date of the last building permit in order to tell you the remaining year that it will be taxed. I hope that makes sense. I don't want to confuse anyone into thinking that they live in CFD number 1 and they have no idea when the last year of their tax will be. It's known for every property. In fact, the school district, on the school district's website, a homeowner has access to put in their parcel number. If they don't know it, they can link back to the county and put in their address to get their assessor parcel number. They can put that in. It will tell them the last year of their tax. We conclude with 2 slides. This one is staff's recommendation. And I'm going to slow down for a second. In the past, at board direction, we looked at CFDs that had fully funded their new construction obligation, and we stopped applying the index. That happened for CFD number 2 several years before the last year of their tax. This year, we do not have any CFDs that have funded their full new construction obligation, so I have no one in category 1. The remaining CFDs fall within category number 2, and staff recommends that we apply the 2% escalator for the current tax rates that will be set, and that is how the board item is presented in the agenda. And finally, we talked briefly about the county requirements. The county requires this resolution in order for me to apply the taxes onto the roll, and it has 2 purposes. It establishes the maximum special tax for any home that 21-22 is the first year of the levy, and it establishes the actual special tax for all the existing developed homes. If anyone has any questions of me or staff.
So, Mr. Tarantino, you had pulled it, sir. You want to go first?
Thank you, Barbara, for your presentation. It's always enlightening, and even though we've heard it for 5 years. I always learn something new. So I read somewhere where one of the justifications for the 2% increase was the need for new schools. And you mentioned that we've been getting projections for declining enrollment. So is that statement that there's a need for new schools still valid in terms of justification for the 2% increase? Would you say, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's not directly linked to new schools, but it is linked to the need for new capacity.
Okay, that's, okay, all right. So the terms are interchangeable then. Okay. And then my second question was, how does a homeowner in one of the CFDs, how do they find out how many years are left on their thing? And you mentioned that it's on our district website?
Yes.
Under where?
If you go to your website and you just put in the word CFDs.
Okay, under the search engine? Okay.
The first option that comes up, and someone needs to do it with me to help me here, is the CFD area.
Okay.
And there's documents available, and then it says if you want to learn more, click here.
Okay.
And you click there, and then that's where you get to know about your property.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. Very good, thank you. That's all I had, President Segura.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. And you have any other questions from the board on this item? Could you just go to slide 16? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let me go, Trustee Hall first.
I just wanted her to repeat the answer she gave to Mr. Tarantino because I could not understand it. I couldn't hear what she responded to it.
Sure.
Without it in front of me, it's always difficult to lead someone through a website. But on your website,
Not the website. Your answer to his question about new construction.
But new schools and
the capacity.
the capacity.
The 2%
Construction.
Okay, the 2% does not relate directly to new schools, but it relates to new capacity needs, whether it's expanding like you're doing now at several of the school sites to cover those costs.
Thank you.
Could you, I'm sorry, could you go to slide 16? It's right there. I was going to ask you a question. So just, I don't mind asking a dumb question, but so if you just go to number 1 and it says, development statistics of the built out and, the yes, no, and it says no, and it says 99.94%. So does that, and you explained it, but maybe I didn't catch it. Does that mean that they paid out 99.94% of the build out, or that's still, I don't understand is what I'm trying to tell you.
Sorry, I probably try to provide way too much information on 16 slides, but this relates to the number of building permits projected at build out and the
Okay.
number that are actually developed. And
That makes sense.
because your CFDs are so large, I always want to say projected at build out because density bonuses happen and things move around a little bit. CFD number 1 is very close to being built out. Another item that's in your packet is the funding of an obligation for school facilities. And you could see at the top of each new CFD, it shows the number of currently permitted dwelling units and the number projected and a total. So CFD number 1 has 6 dwelling units still to be developed. And that's also on the website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield,
Yes.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Now we can go to F3, correct?
Yes.
And that's board members to ask for items or make reports. And thank you for your report and your presentation.
May I speak?
Yes, sir.
Actually, since we have a really loaded agenda today and we have lots of items to pull, I'm going to just postpone give up my time so we can get this through a little bit faster today.
Thank you. I just had a couple things to say, so I'd like to welcome everybody. And as I head into my 13th month of serving as board president, I just want to say I'm honored to be, serving as the board president in this capacity. And this is actually, for most of us, this is actually our 5th new school year that we've been here. And I look forward to, and this is Dr. Aguirre's first new school year as the superintendent. I look forward to keeping and working with the superintendent and the board members, the public, and all stakeholders. And I would like to thank all our educators, all our teachers, administration, all the people at the schools, working with our students, the janitors, the gardeners, and everybody, for their dedication to the students and through this COVID-19 that we're still experiencing. And I just truly appreciate that. They've been working very hard, and a number of them volunteered to work over the summer, like a lot of them, and so they haven't had much break, maybe 2 weeks, in 16 months, and that's a lot of people in this room as well. And I just want to thank our teachers for this last school year who showed tremendous grace and compassion in working with our 2021 students to help them graduate and move on. So that's incredible. I'm very grateful for that. I've heard from a lot of parents and who've told me that they appreciate the work and the compassion that our teachers showed in helping the students move on. I need to congratulate my daughter and other IB students the International Baccalaureate Program, who received notification last week, and she received notification that she's earned her diploma. So that's a big deal because that is a lot of work, and I'm very proud of her and all the students in the 2 programs that we have at 2 school sites. And I like to say, I'm just very happy that we're back to in-person teaching. A number of parents let me know that they're happy, and other students as well. But we need to remain vigilant, to the protocols set forth, and continue to look, for improvement and adjust as necessary to keep our students in school. And I know we're doing that. And I just like to say, one way for that to happen, to keep our students in school, and that's what I really, and that's what we all really want, is for our 12-year-olds and older and community members to get vaccinated, and that would help out tremendously. And that's all I had to add. Thank you. Anybody like to go next? Yes, Vice President Solis.
Thank you, President Segura. I'd like to say yes to a lot of the comments you stated. I reiterate, thank you to all the staff and teachers in the district and all the students for hanging in there and working hard through these tough times. Great work. We really appreciate it. Truly appreciate it. So thank you for that, and for to have a good new year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice President Solis. Anybody else? Mr. Tarantino, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, President Segura. I'd like to congratulate the following students who were recipients of the Cox Scholars Scholarships. These students won. There were 19 seniors throughout San Diego County who won these scholarships, and Cox presented them a total of $75,000 between the 19 seniors, and we had some senior standouts in our district. Alexis Colmenares and Marissa Moreno from Southwest High, Ariel Van Dayrit of Sioux High, Dylan Johnson of Otay Ranch. They were the ones who were selected in this scholarship award, so congratulations to them. I'd also like to thank Corda Smith and Vicky Piolu, who organized the BLAC South Bay Summer of Unity event, which was held at Eastlake High School on July 17th. Very powerful presentations by current and graduates of the district. And of course, the entertainment and panel discussions were also excellent. And thanks to all the district personnel who helped in that endeavor. There are 64 athletes from San Diego County competing in 15 sports. And and there are 2 students from our district who are competing. Women's basketball, Isales Quinones from Otay Ranch High School, and in softball, Sachel Palacios from Otay Ranch High School. So we wish them well in their events, and I don't think that they've come up yet, at least the ones that I haven't seen, they haven't come up yet. Kind of old news, but congratulations to Marcelo Mayer, shortstop who played for Eastlake High School last year. He was the 4th overall pick in the Major League Baseball draft, and he signed with the Bo Sox. So congratulations to Marcelo and his family, and the coaches and all of the personnel at Eastlake High School who helped support him in this endeavor. I do have 2 asks. Based on what, and I believe her, Diana Godfrey, she made her presentation. I would ask that Cabinet and Mr. Segura and Dr. Aguirre consider perhaps quarterly reports from PTSA president, so like that we have a clue as to what's going on in terms of their organization and the support that they're giving to our students and our schools. And I would also like Cabinet and Dr. Aguirre and Mr. Segura to consider that we have a district presentation on our implementation plan for AB 104 with emphasis on the retention of seniors for a 5th year and the implementation of the California grad plan for students at risk. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Hall, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, I'll make it brief. I did attend the BLAC summer, I forget what they called it, but it was really great. It was great. It actually had so many of our community members, young children and all the way up to adults were part of that symposium. They had a great committee of a panel for law enforcement, a judge. I want to thank Dr. Vernon Moore for his taking part in getting that coordinated, as well as our other staff members and the community members that live in our area that may be in different professional capacities have supported the efforts of the South Bay Black Unity efforts. And I met one of my previous colleagues there, Dr. Rayshawn Villery, who is a principal at Oak Park Elementary School up in the San Diego Unified School District. She is one of those community members that is helping support the efforts that we have going on in our community and in our district for our Black, African American, and other Black students, and I'm really appreciative of that. It was a great event. Lots of great dancing, and I understand they had great food too. Thanks to Dina Palmore and her coordinating that. So I just wanted to echo, and that was really spectacular. And I also went to, today I took part, along with Dr. Aguirre, in a city council committee city council committee on COVID reopening and the effects of COVID, not only on our county, but in our schools. That was with council members in San Diego City, Council Member Stephen Whitburn, Council President Jennifer Campbell, and Council Member Monty Von Wilpert and Sean Ilovera. They were all part of that committee, and it was great. We had a presentation from the county about the rising rates, the current rising rates, and it is of COVID in our county. And I was hearing the statistic recently that if we were back in the colored tiers, we'd be in the red tier right now if we were still using that as a metric. But where they found the most critical data is showing that the most current cases are among unvaccinated people, and there is a rise in the cases among younger children, the students that have not been vaccinated, and those even ages 12 and up that haven't been vaccinated. That's where they're seeing these new cases coming in. So it is a good reminder, as Mr. Segura said, we urge you to get vaccinated and keep us all safe. With that, I will thank you for the teachers and staff, for our community members that volunteer. We appreciate everything you do every day to keep us in school and engaged. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. So let me just add real quick. I did participate along with Dr. Moore and Dr. Aguirre, in the Filipino advisory. We had a Filipino advisory committee meeting, or not a presentation. I guess, well, we tried to do a presentation, but it didn't work out. But it's answer questions about going back to school. It was right before school started, and it was a real good hour-long discussion and question and answers. And I really truly value the relationships and the community outreach that we are doing and ongoing. And with that, we can move to F6. And there was pulled by the public.
Yes, I have one speaker. Kathleen Cheers.
Yes, good evening. In reviewing this agenda item regarding the collective bargaining agreement pertaining to the pilot program for independent study, I have a few questions and concerns. Caseloads are referenced. Allow me to begin with the number of students per teacher, 50. In my opinion, I believe this is asking a great deal of the teachers and not taking into consideration the amount of work encompassing the method of teaching. I am surprised the teachers union has agreed to such a high number. Moving on, allow me to address the special education caseload that is also included in this agenda item. The side letter indicates if a SPED teacher has 3 SPED students, these IEPs require 1 hour a week of SAI. The maximum caseload will be lowered to 47. Allow me to ask, how many of you have visited with a SPED teacher, sat with them one-on-one, and asked to see what each student's caseload involved? Excuse my ignorance, but I am not understanding something. It appears SPED students will not be segregated. So does that mean some SPED students will receive instruction from a gen ed teacher? Is that the case? While you are adjusting somewhat for IEP requirements, what about the extra time a SPED student requires? It accounts for that. If there is a resource I can research to answer these questions, please feel free to direct me. In closing, the question I asked earlier is definitely one that should be considered, as there is little, if any, expertise on the dais regarding special education. With SPED numbers growing, it is incumbent on you all to take the time to educate yourselves on the complexities, paperwork, mandated parent meetings involved in SPED. As most of you know, I am the mother of a SPED, now adult, who was educated in the Sweetwater Union High School District. My daughter received the best of the best from her SPED teachers and her general ed teachers, and I'm simply working to be sure that all SPED students receive the same. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Tarantino? You pulled this item?
Yes, I did. I was wondering, in any of the deliberations during the negotiations, was there any discussion related to the 4 high school sites in which there are no special ed teachers assigned to independent study?
Dr. Aguirre?
Thank you, President Segura. I'll ask our lead bargainer, Ms. Carbuccia, to answer that question. Ms. Carbuccia.
Thank you, and I appreciate, I want to give a little bit of backstory, is that if you will recall, we are in the middle of an independent study working group and pilot, looking at all of our independent studies programs to make sure that we know what works best, because alternative education is meant to be that, which is an alternative mechanism to make sure more students are served. So one of the pieces of that did come out as a conversation with SEA regarding caseloads for our students in independent study, which right now, just as a breakdown, we have roughly 21 teachers in independent study. Of that, 13 hold special ed credentials, 5 of which are home hospital, and 8 are general education. Of that, It has always been, up until recently, that we have either been at Moss Street or in the community. This was the first year sites did have some teachers assigned to them. Just for your knowledge, there's roughly 600 students currently enrolled in independent study this year. Of that, 26 are students with disabilities that have an IEP that are not tied to home hospital. And that is a caseload that right now sets 3 teachers at Moss Street and 5 that are at the site. So while that was a unknown fact, Mr. Tarantino, that we did talk about in bargaining, it wasn't something that was a determination, because frankly, as we are looking at independent study, we're making determinations of whether it really is a site-based program. This was the first year it's ever been a site-based program, and that wasn't fully implemented in that manner. So that is not something that's happened in the past. That is not a difference. And so, no, that isn't something that we decided while we were talking, but it was a discussion point, and it was a discussion point in our working groups.
Thank you.
Dr. Anasibia?
No, I was going to move to approve.
Okay. Do we have any further questions on this item? Thank you for that explanation, General Counsel and Dr. Aguirre. If not, I'll entertain a motion for F6.
Move to approve.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield,
Yes.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Move to F7, pulled by the public.
Yes, I have one speaker. Kathleen Cheers.
Yes, good evening. Before I begin, could I respectfully ask that the board members speak closer to the mics? I know it's in congruence with the mask, but it's very, very difficult to hear what you're saying. And also to Attorney Carbucci as well. Thank you. In these unprecedented times, which include fewer teachers and 7 pages of temporary teachers not rehired, please advise why the district is now releasing teacher union leadership positions of vice president and organizing chair from their teacher responsibilities of point 4 for VP and point 2 for organizing chair. Why is Sweetwater School District giving up valuable, much-needed teaching time to union responsibilities? Yes, I do understand the district will be reimbursed financially, but this is about the students. Why is Sweetwater, an educational organization, doing it in the first place? Historically, the SCA president has been afforded this benefit. Why are we now adding the VP and organizing chair? Question, have other Sweetwater District union officials been granted the same release, or is this a preference allotted only to the teachers union? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have an answer to any of those questions?
Thank you. President Segura, I'll ask Ms. Carbucci to answer that since it's a bargaining question. Ms. Carbucci.
Sure. Consistent with government code requirements, as well as Section 3.8 of the collective bargaining agreement with SEA, SEA has the right to request full or partial release of their employees as long as they reimburse us in full. And that is what has happened, consistent with the law and the contract. As it relates to other bargaining units, they have either not negotiated that in, or they have not requested release where they are able to reimburse us from that. We do have time where people get union release to represent someone in a grievance, which is also required by law, but not for full-time release or partial release as required by law.
Thank you for that explanation. And with that, if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Thank you. Vote, please.
Stubblefield,
Yes.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And we can move to F9. And this, we have a public pulled it, me and Mr. Tarantino.
Yes, I have one speaker, Nick Marinovich.
Yeah, we move again. This is Nick Arnovich. I pulled this item not to criticized, the quality of people and past work and everything about capital advisors. They look like a sort of a who's who of people involved in their professional career and education. The reason why I pulled it is there was no discussion in the board letter on how they were selected. Was it a competitive process? Was it you used them in the past and you're renewing your contract? What is it? Just there's want for needing more information of how they were selected, and that's why I pulled it. It's really that it's a good question I think a board member should have, and secondly that I'm paying attention to these agendas. Thank you.
Thank you. So I pulled it as well, and I have participated in a number of presentations that they have given on the budget. They give very good information. They're very good advocates for. They're like-minded in most parts with things that I believe in and that are good for the district and the students. So I'm speaking in support of that. As far as how the selection process, I'm not familiar with that, but I'm just speaking in regards to that I fully support their work and us signing a contract with them for their advocacy and everything else that they will provide under this contract. And I think Mr. Tarantino had pulled it as well.
Yes. I have a concern about this. First of all, the budget workshops through the County Office of Ed are free, so we don't pay for those. And it seems to me that we receive the same services from CSBA and school services. So why are we paying another entity $55,000 to basically provide the same services that we already are signed up with school services and CSBA? My first question. The second question is, they said that they're going to provide regular communications and updates. Will those be presented at board meetings, or who are they going to go to? Who are those updates and communications going to go to? Are ad hoc committee members, or the entire board, or just the superintendent? Those are my two questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. Dr. Aguirre.
Thank you, President Segura. So the information that is provided at ACTS is in a fairly generic format. The reason we're going to be working with, or we're bringing this forward for board consideration, is really so that we can have a much more in-depth relationship and they can tailor their advocacy to our needs. So for example, looking at where we are in terms of the hold harmless, really to have a strategic approach by working with legislators in Sacramento who may be in charge of particular committees. We have sound relationships with our delegation, whether it's state assembly or state senate, but really this is approaching it from a more holistic approach at the state level, more strategic approach. So to answer your question, that's where we get that value added. In terms of who they will providing this information, we can definitely provide it to the board as a whole. We can provide it in different contexts, i.e. the legislative committee as well. So we can provide it in different forums, if you will. And again, we believe there is definitely a value here, particularly as we have learned over the course of the pandemic, that there are a lot of decisions that get made in Sacramento that affect us. And this will allow us to have a greater voice in our advocacy.
Thank you for that differentiation. Appreciate it. That's all I had.
Thank you. And if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, G3, and that was by me. And I'll be brief on that. I was just reading through this, and I am just super supportive of this. This is, I think this could be a really good partnership for many reasons. All the things that they're going to provide to all their schools, the IOA team, and I'm a big proponent of STEAM and throughout our district, and I'm just super excited that this is being brought forward, and I think it could definitely help our students, and especially economically disadvantaged students. So that's all I wanted to comment on that. And if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
Moved and second. Vote, please.
Stubblefield?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
G15, pulled by Dr. Arancibia. And Trustee Hall, Dr. Arancibia, please go first. if you can.
Actually, I'll defer to
Trustee Hall?
Trustee Hall.
Ms. Hall, when you're ready.
Yes, thank you. I believe that my question was around the documentation for training materials and for handbooks for use by all our staff across the district in the different roles that will be utilizing the new system once it's online. And before it's online, the training sessions, has that been worked out? So that when we go full board, everybody will have the materials on hand and be familiar with it. I just want to make sure that's in this amendment.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Superintendent.
Thank you, President Segura. So this is going to be a little bit of a team effort. I'll ask Dr. Winters, who's really kind of headed those conversations, and then perhaps with support from Dr. Socal. Dr. Winters.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yes, indeed, training materials have been addressed specifically in the agreement and in our ongoing conversations with Kinsey and Associates. It will be a joint effort done by both our staff and the Kinsey staff to both develop and deliver the materials. We've had very granular discussions about this to make sure that it's clear who will be doing the creating of the materials and who will be doing the presenting, and to what degree Kinsey will be supporting us throughout that process. So we feel like we've come to a much clearer understanding of who needs to do what. Part of our reason for delaying the timeline was to make sure we had proper training scheduled and prepared for, and that's why one of the reasons why we delayed the start of these integrations. Or I should say the start started a long time ago, but the actual go live date of these integrations.
Thank you.
So have you identified the subject matter experts within the district that will be helping or assisting in the development of these materials, and how will that impact our regular duties?
Yes, we have identified the subject matter experts in each area, whether it's HR or finance. And the reason why the delay of the go live was to make sure that we had reasonable timelines and we're doing training in a concise and truncated timeline. And so those timelines have been laid out, the details of which will be worked out with not only the heads of each department of HR and finance, but their respective bargaining members and unit members.
Thank you, Dr. Winters. I really appreciate your clarity on this and your leadership. I know you will have good work in this. I just would like to have a report in a couple of months, kind of come back and give us an update, or at least in a Friday update. Keep us informed on where we're at, and if it's within the timeline that you have laid out, and you feel like you're making that kind of progress, because we really do want this system implemented and really have a robust system, integrated system with both our human capital and our fiscal and financial resources, so that we can eventually go to the county and get full fiscal ownership back for our district. And I appreciate your leadership in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. And if no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Question.
Go ahead.
One last question. I've been actually approached by administrators in other districts regarding Infor, and the transferability of the information back and forth has been a concern regarding this. And I know I'm late into the game because this is the first time that it's been on the docket that we're discussing it. I just wanted to ask, is that a concern that's been resolved with regards to the compatibility to other districts' formats like PeopleSoft as well, and transferring over the data the data in other ways to other places? That was my only question with regard to that.
Thank you, President Segura. So the short answer to that is yes. We have included the County Office of Education, and we've incorporated them into the conversations around the design of the system. Now, does that mean that there won't be issues once it's up and running and operational? We've all done these IT adoptions, but we have been incorporating them and including them in the development of the design.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Trustee Hall, second. Vote, please.
Stubblefield,
Yes.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
H4, pulled by Dr. Arancibia and myself. And I defer to Dr. Arancibia.
Sorry, I'm hearing you. Sorry, Mr. Cheers. It's probably me that you're talking about with regard to not turning on the mic. It's probably me. I have a total, really, really bad way of forgetting to turn on the microphone. I am a little bit concerned about the rise of cases right now. And particularly, I didn't mention it in my statements because I wanted to make sure that we got through. One of the things I'm imploring everyone is to get vaccinated that we can in our campuses. If there was a way to offer a resolution to get the state to do that and make it mandatory at the school level, I would definitely do that. But my concern is that the testing might be too small and we might need to broaden it out. And this is one of the things, at least as we see, we're talking about Infor in the last one. We're planning it to be like this, and we don't know what we need to go through. Do we have contingencies to be able to leverage this relationship to be able to have more sites with more testing consistently? And I'm not a rolling site, but kind of regularly having sites being able to have it on particular days. That's what I was asking.
Thank you, Dr. Arancibia. So my concerns are around the same thing, testing, and I know we have several sites set up, and so if you could explain if that's going to be the way it is, or because I think that we need to have more testing, and if we could possibly have more rapid testing on sites, I think that just makes the community, the teachers feel better. I know it would me. I had an experience when I was working that somebody had COVID, and I wasn't told till like a week later. And I just, that's just a horrible feeling. And I wasn't around students. I was working in a hospital environment. But I just think that, just being able to provide more testing, especially as the Delta variant, is expanding, and it's just a real concern. And it's just because I just want to keep everybody, all the students in class in person. So that's my question as well.
Thank you, President Segura. Again, the short answer is that we're not seeing this as an either or. We currently have a partnership with San Diego State through a grant that they received from the NIH. This particular item in front of us for our board consideration is actually part of more of a partnership from us and San Diego State. So we are actually a recipient in terms of COVID-19 testing for this only addresses middle school. So to that end, we do continue to talk with different vendors for the provision of additional sites, COVID-19. So it's more of a layered approach so that we can have current testing right now. It's fairly limited, but we have some testing going on this week. This will allow us to increase our ability to provide COVID-19 testing with this joint grant that we're receiving with San Diego State. And then in addition, we also continue to look for either A, other grant opportunities, or B, other vendors that may provide this. There's a lot of people in the market. We just want to make sure we do our due diligence so that we can do this in a way that makes sense for our district. But again, we're not seeing this as an either or. We continue to build our repertoire of ability to test for COVID-19.
Thank you. I appreciate that information, and I'm glad we are doing that.
I'll now move to approve this one.
I will second. Vote, please.
I'll second. Oh.
Stubblefield,
Yes.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
K5, pulled by Trustee Hall.
Thank you, President Segura. I pulled this item because I noticed that the officers' names were and the position they hold were blacked out. I wasn't sure so we don't have the officers on record on the board item, so that kind of threw me. I do understand why we would black out their address and phone numbers, but it seems for the record we would need to have those names in the document. So can you help me understand why we don't? Thank you.
Superintendent?
Thank you, President Segura. For this, it might be a little bit, again, of a team effort. I'll ask Dr. Socal, and then if need be, if Ms. Karbucha can support.
So Trustee Hall, we can certainly look at that. I think we can double check why the name was blocked. I think some of that confidential information for addresses, but we can double check and provide the names to the board.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve. Yeah.
I will second. Vote, please.
Stubblefield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
So that goes to K6, and we have a presentation, correct? How long is this presentation, sir?
I'm looking at Dr. Socal. I hear it's fairly brief.
Okay, well then we'll just go ahead and move to that. Thank you. Beautiful.
So good evening again. So we're presenting this item to the board as a follow-up to the AB 139 report that was released by FCMAT last summer in June. We provided an update to the findings and their recommendations to the Audit and Finance Subcommittee in August of last year, and then subsequently to the board. And then also in the fall, we provided an update to the Infor computer implementation system, because a lot of the common items noted in the FCMAT report center around our computer system with TrueCourse. And so this is just an effort to continue to provide the board an update on where we're at with some of those items. And so I think one of the memos that are attached to the board agenda item highlights three components that we want to share this evening with the board. The first was just updating the table, reflecting that we have conducted the fraud prevention and fiduciary training. We did that last September, late August into September, so providing that update on that table. And then also, that was R1, with recommendation 1. And then on recommendation 8 is also providing an update regarding our budget transfers report. That was actually something that was done on an annual basis in September of each year for the prior year. We've made that a practice to bring that forward to the board on a monthly basis. It's typically item K3. So just reflecting that change that we've put into place, along with our financial position reports that we bring forward to the board via the superintendent on a Friday update memo. And then also, we've now included in our budget development, we bring for budget adoption, a budget book that reflects the positions and funding. So again, an area there that shows some enhanced reporting. And then the last item tied to what was presented earlier with the Infor change order, which is recommendation number 9. We had intended to have the system go live for financial and HR by this July. But with COVID and a couple of other things as noted on that agenda item, we're looking at HR going in just a few months, and then the finance component going live July of next year. So again, just an update that we continue to do that work in that area to put those process improvements and updates moving forward, and to keep the board apprised of what we're doing. If there are any questions?
I don't have a question. I would just like to say I am glad we're cutting this on a pause. We're continuing to be work being done on this. I know that the finance department and staff is super loaded down with work, as well as HR. So I think it definitely makes sense, the path we're doing, and I'm just glad that we keep getting these updates, and I appreciate it. Do we have any other?
I have one speaker to this item.
Yes, go ahead.
Kathleen Cheers.
Good evening. I would like to acknowledge the expertise and credibility of Dr. Socal and all that she has brought to our district. Her valiant efforts to undo the complicated ball of yarn of the multi-million-dollar deficit she walked into is much appreciated by the community she serves. Dr. Socal is indeed a leader who is trusted and appreciated. It is also important to recognize her hardworking, committed staff. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, and I concur with the thanks to the Finance Department. This is really, really wonderful news that we're continuing forward and moving slowly but surely, That's great. Thank you. Move to approve.
This is actually just a report. We don't need any action.
Right. All right, thank you. We can move to L4, correct? Now it's pulled by the public.
One moment, please. L4, yes. Terry McKerney?
Well, good evening, board members, and I have to tell you, I do not expect to be back here. In June, I finished my term as the Taxpayer Association representative to the CBOC. And in due course, of course, my organization, San Diego Taxpayers Association, nominated someone to take my place. The fellow they nominated was a past budget analyst for another school district and is currently the CFO of a small company. Pretty qualified guy, right? The fellow who you're going to be asked to approve tonight is not. He has a strong history of being a community activist. He has a stronger history of being a union activist. Nowhere on the resume provided by him in his selection process does he say anything about being a member of a taxpayer association. Now, I expect that by now he's probably joined some second-class taxpayer association, so we've checked the block. But let's think about why the law says you need a representative from a taxpayer association. It's to provide that representation by the public who pays those bonds off for the process of maintaining and monitoring those bonds. In nominating the person you've put down tonight before you, and I'm sure he's a very fine guy, he's a community activist, and I understand that. And I understand that you're probably pretty comfortable with him because of his union activities. But you're missing the spirit, if not the letter of the law, in having a taxpayer association representative fill that slot. Let me finish by saying the CBOC has been one of the institutions in this district that has long been respected by the public. Through all the turmoil that's been inherent in this district for years, the CBOC was looked upon by the community as one of those independent and objective organizations that helped run the district and help keep the district on track. Nominating the person who's on the ballot or the motion tonight will not help that. It's a return to the days of cronyism and lack of transparency in the running of this district, and now it will be part and parcel of the bond oversight process. I hope you make the right choice. Thank you for the time to talk with you, but you don't have the right fellow to take my spot on the CBOC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney.
Kathleen Cheers?
In reviewing the agenda item in attached documents, I did not see any indicator which identifies which taxpayer association the BOC taxpayers representative being recommended belongs to. Additionally, how was the membership identified by the applicant since it was not included in this application? Hopefully the new member is affiliated with the San Diego Taxpayer Association, or at least I was hoping anyway. And we are not following the actions of Southwestern a few years ago by placing BOC member whose agenda is union affiliated versus someone who focuses in the best interest of the taxpayer. Special recognition to Terry McKerney, termed out BOC Tax Association representative. A civil servant, all respect. Mr. McKerney's fact-based expertise played a major role in the recognition the then BOC received statewide. The BOC's then commitment to act independently is why the then BOC was trusted by the community and escaped even a hint of collusion accusations. Perhaps the board would be better served if they simply transparently added a union member mandate as one of the BOC representatives. I would like to close by adding, this does not reflect well on the superintendent, or the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Hall, did you have your hand up or no?
I'm
Was that-
sorry, there's another speaker, sir.
Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Nick Marinovich?
Well, you can hear me. This is Nick Marinovich again. And my comments are here as an individual, though I'm a member of the California Association of Bond Oversight Committees as a board of director and a former president, and also a member of the same Taxpayers Association as Mr. McKerney, but I'm here as an individual. But probably more in terms of what we're doing here, I was 8 years as chair of this Bond Oversight Committee, and it pains me to see how it has evolved as a result of this recommended board action. As mentioned earlier, Mr. Vasquez didn't have a taxpayer organization listed on the agenda item or his application. And the law says one member of the Oversight Committee shall be active in a bona fide taxpayers organization. Now, the Middle Class Taxpayers Association that you represent, look, me personally, I'm much more in line with what they believe, but it's not a taxpayer organization as was intended by the law. Fiscal frugality. And the optics of having a union representative as a taxpayer representative just says, oh, God, there they go again. It's not quite as bad as having the husband of a board member on the Oversight Committee, but to my own mind, it's just the same kind of conflict of interest. And why was a budget handler from San Diego Unified wasn't selected? Somebody with school experience to be on a school citizens bond oversight committee as the taxpayer representative? Come on. We all see what's going on. And I'm going to be probably less polite than any of the two prior speakers. This is disgusting. This is marginalizing the oversight committee that we all work so hard on, like Terry McKerney, who drove down here from Scripps Ranch and sat through 2 hours of a board meeting to say what he said to say. That shows you how strongly he feels about it. And I feel every bit as strong. You're showing your cards, board and superintendent, and we see where they are. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
All right. So I don't know I know Mr. Lopez, I don't, and Mr. Munoz. I don't know the other two individuals. And I believe that Mr. Vasquez, from what I'm told, is a member of the Middle Class Taxpayers Association. And I actually served on a CBOC at Southwestern College. I'm sorry that it didn't meet your expectations, sir. I appreciate the work you've done here at on our CBOC, but I've served on that committee in the past before I got involved here. I spent a lot of time there. I was just a member at large, but there was another union member, which is not a bad word, who served on that committee, and he was actually a management guy who came over to the good side. I'm just kidding. And he served as the Middle Class Taxpayer Association. He served extremely well, in my opinion. He taught me a lot, and so. Just because it's not San Diego Taxpayer Association, who I have nothing against, I think that it's all right to have other people have this experience. He's not the only individual on that on the CBOC, and I know that I think that the Middle Class Taxpayer Associations also have served on Southwestern College, like I mentioned, and at Grossmont Cuyamaca College board. So they have experience. I don't meet with them, but I know that they are a legitimate organization. And Dr. B, who's an expert in many things, has helped lead that organization. And that's my opinion on this appointment. I don't know if you wanted to add something, Dr. Ligeti?
Thank you, President Segura. I'd just like to add that in the past, it was advocated that there be a process. There was a process followed. So I just wanted to make sure that was made clear. This was not there was a process that was followed. And so for people to comment on that, it's their right, but it doesn't mean that what they are saying is right. So it was a process, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. Tarantino, sir.
I'd like some clarification on the analysis, because in the analysis, it says that there were 2 at-large members who applied, 1 senior citizen organization member, and 1 taxpayer association member. So Mr. McKerney is referencing that there were 2. So why the discrepancy?
It says 2.
It says
It
1.
says 2 taxpayer associations.
And 1 taxpayer association member. Oh, let me see, where, oh, I'm reading the other thing. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. I stand corrected. Thank you for that, Mrs. Hall.
Move to approve?
Second.
I'll second.
Moved in and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield,
Yeah.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
No.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no.
Okay, move to, do we need a bathroom break, or can we get through? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 items left. Does anybody need a break? We're good? Okay, let's go to L8, pulled by Trustee Hall.
L6, actually.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pulled by Trustee Hall.
Yes, thank you. I understand the need for a financial reporting manager, but my hesitation on this is that a lot of these districts, or a lot of these duties that are described here in the job description are not really for specialized funding. And I'm not sure why you couldn't have brought it with a recommendation for a lower level position. I'm not sure that a management is the one needed to do the reporting for this, if that was the reasoning. So that's my observation and question. Why didn't you bring a lower level position to do the work? Because in my experience, a manager does not do the reporting. They don't do the work. They supervise, or they are over the workers who actually perform that work. So I need an explanation on that. And also the fact that there wasn't an org chart that accompanied this to explain the report, the chain of command for this position.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Dr. Aguirre? I'm rolling my R's.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, President Segura. I'll ask Dr. Socal to provide a response to that question. Dr. Socal.
So Trustee Hall and board members, so we're bringing forward this particular job description to help support the work around the reporting, not only because it is 50% ESSER or one-time funding, given the amount of reports that the state and the federal government are requiring, and the related audit work and helping facilitate that. But the other 50% is general fund around what we shared earlier with the Infor implementation. There are a lot of new reports that are needing to be created. So from the question about staff time, it's having that support from the management standpoint to support and identify needs that the accountants might need, that the budget analysts might need to help manage that work and put systems in place moving forward. So it is a multi-funded position.
But that's not what this board item says. It doesn't describe it as a board split funded, does it? Oh, there it is.
It does.
322.
It should be.
Yeah. Yes, I see it on the second sentence there. Sorry.
And it would require.
But it doesn't show the split. It doesn't show it as a 50-50 split even. So that's my concern. I can't support this.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Do we have any other questions or answers? Or so the question I have is, so this is funded by multiple funds. So when the one funding source ends, and if that's 2 years, 3 years, or 1 year, then how do we determine whether this continues or not? That's my question, sir.
Dr. Socal?
So we would evaluate at that point that through that budget cycle where we're at. By that point, we would have had the N4 implementation to see if there's continual need, if that's the case, if we would need to go to the general fund for the other half, or evaluate, again, that just the need at that point in time and for that position.
So would the individual who would take this job, would they have to be told that, or is that just something that you just, that's just part of a job? Is, you're never guaranteed things forever most times, but that's.
Yeah, I think that that's the environment we're working with. Again, this is partially funded out of the ESSER funds. And I think as we move forward, because we received the ESSER funds, it put us in a place where we have a significant amount of tracking and reporting that is required of us, in addition to all the work that was previously there. And so it's with that context in mind that we're bringing this forward. Again, and from year to year, our job is to analyze what our funding is, what our support is, what positions are here. So it would be included in that analysis of budget development.
Yeah. And my question is, I think we should be very upfront with the job description that, hey, this is on contingent funding, because if we lose the ESSER funding, we have to be very clear for folks. And yes, that's going to hurt the applicant pool, but at the same time too, I think that's the concern that I'm hearing from everybody. What happens when the funding ends? Will this person understand and know, or will they expect to be another part of the hierarchy or the chart, right? And this is something I think we have to be very clear with in order to, if we're going to do this, I think that's something that needs to be very explicit in the way that it's laid out for the person that's applying to it.
Thank you, Dr. Arancibia. And I know I'm definitely not doubting that you need help and there needs to be work there. Don't get me wrong there. I do definitely know that your departments are slammed with work. So, and if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion for this item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
No.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no.
All right. L8. And that was pulled by Trustee Hall.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I'm welcome Mr. Bucket and Ms. Schmidt to the Audit Finance Subcommittee. We are looking forward to seeing them in person, and their credentials are stellar. So I'm very thankful that we have 2 community members willing to step up and serve in that capacity. Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve their appointment.
I'll second. Vote, please.
Stubblefield?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
M1.
And and President Segura, we do have Ms. Schmidt in the room, so
Oh.
I just wanted to acknowledge her attendance.
Thank you for
today.
coming.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt.
Oh, nice. Maybe she can say something.
I didn't mean to put her on the spot. I just.
Would you
Well, I
like to-
can't see
would
her.
you-
That's
yeah,
my
you can introduce
problem.
yourself,
That's
please.
my-
There you go. You'll be able to see her.
Good evening.
Hello.
It's an
Nice to
honor. and
meet
a-
you.
Nice to meet you as well. I look forward to being a part of the process. I'm new at this, but longtime parent and very involved and interested. It's an honor and a pleasure to serve, and thank you for your confidence. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Welcome.
for
See you
being
on-
here.
See you on August 2nd. Thank you. M1.
That's the one I pulled. And I just wanted to thank folks for being so persistent, Janea and Dr. Rosario. This is something that they've seen through, and I'm really excited to see how the process is just starting to begin, but it makes me feel really, really, really happy, because I think that, I'm going to tell you, I've said it to everyone else, but Bonita Vista has been one of the most ignored campuses in the district, and I can tell you there are certain paint in some of the Bonita Vista middle classrooms that are the same ones that I went and saw 35 years ago. But I think that it's something that we need to actually start making a move forward. And I just want to congratulate and thank you and and thank Dr. Del Rosario for the great work that we've both done in terms of kind of getting everyone to buy into this. So I just want to say I'm really, really happy about this. Thank you. And with that, I'll just move to approve.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Yeah, I'll give it to myself.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield,
Yes.
Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
P1, pulled by Trustee Tarantino.
Yes, thank you, President Segura. I had some questions about the process in terms of re-engagement and transition to in-person learning. Hopefully, the transition to in-person learning will coincide with semesters, and that students will not be transitioned during the semester. I think that would create a hardship not only for the student but also for the teacher of record of all of their classes. So that's first question. Will it coincide with semesters? And how often are the evaluations going to be conducted? Will they be conducted at progress reports, at a certain amount of absences, or no-shows in terms of logging in? How often will those evaluations be conducted? And then it would be helpful if perhaps the forms that are used for the various processes could be shared with the board. So like that, when parents ask us questions, we have an idea of what the process is in terms of what people are asking of the student and the parent. What are the instructional contracts look like? Those kinds of things. It would be helpful, at least to me, to be able to have an idea of what those forms are and what they look like. That's all I had. Those three questions.
Superintendent?
Thank you, President Segura. So I'll ask Dr. Moore, since this falls in the realm of student services. It was a team effort with Dr. Winters and Dr. Alvarez. So the reality is it was a team effort putting this together. But I'll ask Dr. Moore to answer these questions. Dr. Moore.
Thank you for those questions, and good evening, board. As it relates to how often the progress towards credits are conducted in an independent study setting, and this is a setting wherein a student would be meeting with a teacher on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, what we call traditional independent study. I mean, literally every time that teacher meets with the student, they're looking to see if there's been adequate work completed. As students progress through independent study, they should be earning about a credit every 3 to 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks at the longest, because semesters are typically 18 weeks and you want your students earning approximately 6 credits per semester. So every time teachers meet with students, and then there is the progress reports that come out every 6 weeks. But every time that teachers meet, they should be monitoring. And in fact, in Data Insights, which Dr. Winters has worked on, we have a tool that can monitor progress of credits over time. And so that's to answer that first question, is how often. Ideally, it's every time that the teacher meets, they're looking at how much work has been completed towards credits. The new regulations really make it stricter regarding the transition plan back to in-person, full-time in-person instruction from independent study. What the new regulations indicate is that once it's requested that a student return, the district has 5 days in which to respond. And so I know Trustee Tarantino mentioned that the semesters, which are very natural breaks for returning back to, let's say, a comprehensive site from independent study, makes sense. However, we need to really grapple with the new legislation to see exactly how that's going to be implemented, because the legislation says that we have 5 days in which to respond with a plan. And so, we can start teasing out what that means by a plan, but it really does put our districts and any districts, offering independent study in a situation where we need to be responsive with our families. And finally, as it relates to the documents, we call them master agreements in our independent study program. And there's one for every student as they come in. They sit down with the counselor and the family, and they go through those agreements, and they indicate what courses they're going to be working on, and timing for those courses, and all of those pieces. And we would love to provide those to you in a Friday update.
I have a follow-up question. Then, if within 5 days a student has to be returned to in-person learning, then what kind of feedback is the teachers of record in the in-person learning going to get? Are they going to get transfer grades? And is it going to be mandatory that they accept those transfer grades? And is the student going to be expected to take a final exam and pass that final exam in order to get credit? If they may be at a different point in time in terms of their learning, how is that going to work? And what kind of guidelines are going to be given to the teachers?
And thank you. And I think these are all excellent questions. The law was, passed and made public, I think, probably about 2 weeks ago. And we've, in these last 2 weeks, started with reviewing the procedures and the implementation plan. And so I think it speaks to your question, which is, we would want to, again, I think what the legislation says is we need to come up with a plan to present to the families within 5 days. It doesn't, in the way I read it, and others may read it differently than I'm reading it, is that in 5 instructional days after requested, we need to come up with a plan. So my idea would be the best way for a student to transition in between programs, to make sure that they're getting access to the most credits, they're not putting themselves in jeopardy of returning to a comprehensive site so that they end up having to take a final exam or pass some kind of massive project in the last couple weeks. To me, would make sense that the plan would be presented, that the students would would return in those natural breaks. However, we really have to study this in the coming weeks to develop a more a comprehensive plan, because what it says is 5 instructional days.
Superintendent?
Thank you. The other person who worked on this policy was Dr. Winter, so I'll ask him to go through some of the review that went through, including going through the model policy that was distributed by CSBA, with the understanding we're trying to be compliant. At the same time, there are some questions that are still outstanding. So with that, Dr. Winters?
Yeah, I think just to add to what Dr. Moore stated, the policy is very new, and it was a mere 292-page law, which we've been digesting quickly and applying to what we already had in place for independent study. Many of the items were already a part of our practice. As for the 5-day return to in-person, I think a lot of it is counseling parents, because we're at Launch Academy quarter-based system, so we really discourage people from leaving in the middle of a semester. Push comes to shove, we'll let you go. You'll get credit for those classes like you would in any transfer from one school to the other. But it's disadvantageous to move in the middle of a semester, because you're going to get 3 courses of credit, 3 of which don't transfer. And so it will be a lot of counseling about what the best time is to move. And again, if push comes to shove and they say 5 days we want out per law, we'll move them and make the best accommodation we can at that school site. But a lot of it is just counseling on what the ideal time is. For Launch Academy, for those that join, we ask them to commit to a year, knowing that we can obviously transition you at the semester, and with this new law, we can transition you right away. But again, it's about building a relationship with those parents to make sure they know what the best options are available when they decide this doesn't work for them.
Could perhaps our capital advisors that we're going to implement as lobbyists, could they lobby Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez in terms of the fact that perhaps there are some shortcomings in the legislation that she proposed and was ultimately signed by the governor.
Well, and the other thing too, I mean, Trustee Tarantino, the thing is, I feel that this year has been one, hey, we're throwing out one regulation that's new after another regulation that's new, and I feel like down to the CDH guidelines, we got them literally the Thursday before we started classes, and we had instructors and community members saying, why don't we have anything? Well, we haven't been given them, much like this, and I just feel this is just a pattern for the year of trying to come back from the pandemic, and I think everybody needs to be a little bit patient, and I totally think that we're going to get through. But it's just, I think we're being inundated with new things that we need to work through. And I appreciate the efforts of everyone trying to get this done. And your questions are straight on point. And the idea of what we need to have on the paperwork and how the processes must work. It's just, I feel like this is like the fourth instance I've heard of new things implemented within the last 3 weeks.
President Segura, if I may, and the broader context again is the legislature passed a lot of these budget trailer bills with an assumption that school starts the day after Labor Day.
Mhm.
Well, for us, it was last Wednesday, so there's a little bit of us, again, being at the forefront. This is then kind of some of the variables that we have to contend with because of that, but we're doing everything possible within our ability to ensure that we're compliant, that we're offering parents this information, and that we're following the law. And by all means, we definitely have the ability to advocate for additional changes and amendments. And hopefully we can have access to legislators so they can hear this feedback as one of the early districts that started, I know for sure, in our county and perhaps even in our state.
Can I go ahead and move to approve?
You just did. I'll second it. Vote, please.
Stubblefield?
Yes.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Q1 on our final item, pulled by Mr. Tarantino. Sir.
Okay, I kind of had same questions that I had for the policy 6158. So in terms of extracurricular activities, are the students in launch going to be allowed to participate in extracurricular activities and athletics, such as prom, graduation at their home school? I know that we're applying for a CDC number, and so it'll be its own school. So will they have their own graduation? Will they have their own prom? That kind of stuff. Do we have any, first question, second question, do we have any enrollment data that last year we said they have to stay in launch for a whole year? Do we have any data in terms of how well that worked? How many students weren't there for a year and were sent back to in-person learning distance learning at their home schools? And there's also a notation that CTE courses will be offered via launch. So is that by a credentialed CTC teacher? Are they going to be having access to CTE classes at their school of attendance? How is that going to work?
Superintendent?
I'll ask Scott, since this is a launch-specific item, I'll ask Dr. Winters. Dr. Winters?
Yeah, so take that one question at a time there. First, the athletics. Yes, athletics, they will be allowed to participate in athletics at their residence school. We have what's called a multi-school agreement, which we did last year as well, but it will still be in effect this year to allow them to participate in athletics. We had a few. In fact, one of the young men you saw tonight on the Bonita Vista basketball team, Jalen McDonald, launched student last year. So indeed, that is part of the opportunity they have being at Launch Academy. For data, I can provide that data in a Friday update in terms of how many students came back during the year and also how many students and how many credits per student were earned. At Launch, I ran that last spring, but not after summer school. So I'll provide that in a Friday update. CTE, yeah. So we do have 2 CTE teachers who are part of the Launch staff and maybe adding a third one as well. So they'll get those courses directly with CTE credentialed teachers.
That's it. I'd just like to comment that I really like that there's extensive CTE classes available, and it's really, really good, including CTE video and art design and everything, all the multimedia stuff. So I really like that list. And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
So
Second.
Move to second and vote, please.
Second.
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, that concludes our meeting. We are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night.